Sky Bet League One is getting closer and closer to starting, and we're just a couple of weeks away from that occurring. So it's time to look into Sky Bet League One, look at the transfers that have occurred so far, and what teams could go quite far in the division this season. Now, I just want to start off by saying that everything screenshotted and shown in this upcoming video is from Transfer Market from the 29th of July. That's the month we're in now, 29th of July. So if anything's wrong, if there's any new additions, then that is why. So just let me know your thoughts down in the comments on this upcoming video. Let me know who you think is going to get promoted. We'll have a predictions video tomorrow. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, smash the like button, and let's get into it. So starting off, we have Barnsley. Went through a bit of turmoil towards the back end of last year and really very nearly got themselves into the playoff final. They were very unlucky against Bolton, in my opinion. I felt like Barnsley were the better side over the two legs, which is quite interesting to say when you look at the back end of the season Barnsley had last year. But they've brought in a brand new manager in Darryl Clarke. They finished 6th last season with 77 points, 21 wins, 13 draws, 12 losses. They scored 82 goals and conceded 64. But shall we take a look at the incomings that they've brought in so far? Now, they've brought in captain Conor Hourihane from Derby County last season. He's come in what will turn into a player-coach role. They've brought in Mark Roberts from Birmingham City. He left them on a free transfer. Connor Barrett has come in from Sheffield United and Jackson Smith's coming from Walsall. Well, they've also brought in loanee midfielder Matthew Craig from Tottenham. Now, if we look at the outgoings, the list is quite long. Herbie Kane has left for League One rivals Huddersfield. Jordan Williams has gone and joined Pompey in the Championship. Robbie Cundy has gone to Notts County. Ollie Shaw has gone and joined Hamilton Academic in the Scottish Championship. Andy Dallas has gone out on loan to Barrow. Devante Cole and Nicky Cadden have left the club on free transfers. Now, I think Barnsley are certainly going to be up there. They've had a few issues this season, but I think there's probably 12 to. Yeah, I say there's probably half of the league that is probably going to be battling for a playoff place this season. It's going to be really interesting to see how it does play out. The way teams start the season, and especially that middle part over Christmas, is going to be massively important this season, especially to a club like Barnsley. And then if you go and look at the likes of Birmingham City and Huddersfield Town, Rotherham, making sure that you can sort of stay on form, not lose back-to-back games, is going to be massively important for these teams. I do think Barnsley are going to be in and around the top half. I think it's going to be very close up at the top end this year. I will be doing match reviews and previews for each game week for League One. So make sure, if that is something you're interested in, you hit that subscribe button. Shall we get into the next team now? So next up, we've got Birmingham City. Brand new manager Chris Davis has come in after, I think, is it Tony Mowbray left due to medical reasons. I think they went for about 5 or 6 managers last year. And they finished 23rd in the Championship last year on what I think is a record-breaking relegation with 50 points, 13 wins, 11 draws and 22 losses. 50 goals scored, 65 conceded. Now, John Eustace got Birmingham City to... I think they were in 6th place when he got sacked, and ultimately they probably should have stayed in the division last year, but they just weren't able to, with a lot of changes going on behind the scenes, obviously with the new ownership. Now, it is a shame to see them get relegated, but shall we get in to all the signings they've made, because they've made a ton of them. Now, if we look at the signings, they've brought in Christoph Clara, the centre-back, 24 from Darmstadt, for €4 million. I was told in the comments of my Championship video that this is in euros, and that's completely fine. William Thor Williamson, 25-year-old attacking midfielder from Go Ahead Eagles, €4 million. Emil Hansen, left winger from Hercules, 1.75 million. They've brought in Alex Cochran from Hearts of Midlothian in Scotland for 1.2 million. They've spent nearly £2 million on goalkeepers in Ryan Alsop and Bailey Peacock Farrell. They've also brought in Alfie May and Mark Leonard. Now, Alfie May is an incredible signing for this level. Guarantees goals at this level for me. Mark Leonard, incredible for Northampton over the past couple of seasons. Will he be able to step it up to the top end of League One? We are going to find out. I think he'll certainly slot into that Birmingham team quite easily. I think Leonard is a very good player. A lot of clubs were interested in him, but obviously not many can compete with the fees that Birmingham are throwing about in League One. If you look they've probably spent around 10 million this summer already, and it's difficult to sort of quantify that when you think Derby County spent £300,000 in League One on Corey Blackett-Taylor. That's the only transfer fee they paid. Obviously, yes, wages, whatever, but we're not including wages in this. So I think if Birmingham don't go up, there's going to be massive problems at Birmingham. Now, outgoing wise, they've let a fair few players go. Ivan Sunjic and Scott Hogan are still both without a club. Alex Pritchard has gone to Turkey. Zach Geacock has gone to Lincoln City. John Ruddy has gone and moved to Newcastle. Mark Roberts has gone to Barnsley, as previously mentioned. Gary Gardner has joined Cambridge United. And Neil Etheridge has gone to the Thai League. Now, it's going to be very interesting to see how this Birmingham side do get on. I think a lot of people have got them tipped as favourites. Next up, we've got Blackpool. They finished 8th in League One last season, scoring 73 points, 21 wins, 10 draws and 15 losses. 65 goals scored, 48 goals conceded, not 64. And Neil Critchley's got a job on his hands. They've lost a big player in Karamoko Dembele, but it's going to be interesting to see how they revitalise this squad going into this upcoming season. Now, if we do look at the incomings, they've brought in Ashley Fletcher on a free transfer from Watford. The 28-year-old striker really needs to revitalise his career. Lee Evans has come in from promotion-winning Pompey. Jordan Rhodes has returned after his loan spell was cut short due to injury last season. Hayden Coulson has joined from Middlesbrough and Zach Ashworth has joined from West Brom. Now, outgoings, they've lost Marvin Ekipita from Hibernian. He's gone to Hibernian, sorry. Callum Connolly has joined Stockport. Despite he did have a bit of championship interest earlier in the window, Shane Lavery has gone and joined Cambridge United, fellow League One club. Matty Virtue has gone to Fleetwood and Luke Marriott is still without a club. Now, it's going to be interesting with Blackpool because their two main players last season were Karamoko Dembele and Jordan Rhodes. Now, Jordan Rhodes has returned, but Karamoko Dembele has not. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen with them next season. I think last season, if I remember rightly, they either struggled at home or struggled away. It was one of the two, and that is what cost them playoffs. So it is going to be interesting to see how this one goes for them. Now, Bolton Wanderers, the best team in League One last season, but couldn't get over the line at Wembley. Ian Evatt is still at charge over there. They finished third on 87 points and lost in the playoff final. 86 goals scored, 51 goals conceded, 25 wins, 12 draws and 9 losses. Now, if we look at their incomings, I've seen a lot of people say they're still a fair few players short. They've brought in Claudio Lolos from Crawley Town. He could be a very, very good player at just 23 years of age. They've brought in Chris Fornio from Wycombe Wanderers. Scott Arfield, at 35 years old, has joined from Charlotte. And Luke Southwood has joined from Cheltenham Town. Now, if we do go and look at the outgoings, they've lost some big players from their squad. Budvarsson, at 32 years old, has moved on. He's still without a club, but he was one of their main players last year. Now, I don't think he was ever that good. He got himself in some really good positions, but just couldn't finish his dinner. They've also let go of 37-year-old Cameron Jerome. I'm not really surprised that he's gone, although Cameron Jerome was one of the reasons they were even still in the hunt for automatic promotion. Declan John has also moved on, and Luke Hutchinson has joined Marine on a loan transfer. Now, Ian Evatt has got a lot to do with this season. He's going to be under extreme scrutiny, and I think they have to go up this year. But how they go up, that is anybody's guess. Bristol Rovers are up next with Matty Taylor in charge. They finished 15th last year with 57 points, 16 wins, 9 draws and 21 losses. 52 goals scored, 68 goals conceded. And I think Bristol Rovers are a fairly decent side. They just had a really tricky start. Now, they've made an abundance of signings. They've brought in Promise from Fleetwood for about €590,000. They brought in Isaac Hutchinson from Walsall, the former Derby County Academy graduate, for €300,000. Jamie Lindsay, Rule Sartoriu, Clinton Mola, Joel Senior, Bryant from Borough, he's come in. Dan Ellison's come in, all on free transfers, I believe. They've also brought in Taylor Moore, Matthew Thorbs and Josh Griffiths. They could have a really, really good season this year, but it's going to be interesting to see what actually does happen, especially when you look at the outgoings at the club. Now, Anthony Evans was a big player for them last season. He's moved on to Huddersfield Town for €500,000. Lewis Gordon has gone to join Chesterfield on a free transfer. Sam Finley has gone to Tranmere Rovers. Luca Hoyle has gone to Shrewsbury Town. John Marquez has also gone to join Shrewsbury Town. James Gibbons has gone to Cambridge United. Ryan Jones, Aldershot. Harvey Greendale has gone to Yeovil Town. Josh Grant and Jordan Rossiter are both without clubs. I believe Jordan Rossiter is currently on trial at Shrewsbury Town. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain he played against Derby when we played them. Was it last week? Something along those lines. So that could be like a very good signing for Shrewsbury Town. I think he's a very good player, and injuries have really, really ruined his career. Now, a big shout to Burton Albion. They've had a takeover over the summer and they've had a change of manager, which does not surprise me if you go back to my end of season video about the last game where I talk about Burton Albion. I said that I wouldn't be surprised if their manager was let go and everything was changed about, and it has been all changed at Burton Albion. Mark Robinson's come in. They finished 20th place last season, 48 points, 12 wins, 10 draws and 24 losses. 39 goals scored, 67 conceded, and they really did, they didn't even move over the line. They they just stayed where they were. They were, genuinely, second half of the season, they were awful. They were an awful, awful team, and how they stayed in the division, I have absolutely no idea. But we've got a couple of slides of incomings because they've made an absolute ton. Terence Van Kooten has come in from Stevenage for around €590,000. They've brought in Charlie Webster from Chelsea's under-21s. That's Mark Robinson using his previous links. Elliot Watt is coming from Salford. Ben Whitfield from Barrow. They've brought in Billy Bowden from Championship Oxford United. Thomas, I'm not even going to pronounce that, from FC Den Bosch. Gerardo Bajrami from Notts County. They've brought in Roman Burrell from Cove United. Jack Armour from Carlisle United. If we go to the next one, they've brought in Goodwin McLeaf from Swindon Town. Harry Eisted from Chesterfield. Danilo Orsi from Crawley Town, who just got promoted last season. They've been ripped apart. They've brought in Nick Akoto from Tormenta? Something along them lines. They've brought in Jason Saharia from Shrewsbury, Alex Bannon from Crease Park, Ivan from FC Chanably Elise from the French. Is that second tier or third tier? That's quite a low tier. I believe he's also gone back out on loan, so that's an interesting one. They've brought in Jack Hazelhurst from Chorley, Julian Larson from Nottingham Forest, Dylan Williams is coming from Chelsea under-21s on a loan transfer that I believe has an obligation to turn permanent. I genuinely believe these could be in the playoff hunt next season because, Dylan Williams, in my opinion, is a championship left wing back, easily. He played for us at 17 in the championship and didn't look out of place. And I genuinely think if Chelsea hadn't have come in, he'd have been our starting left wing back at this point. He'd have made it through the administration period by ease. And so long as he wanted to stay, he would have been our starting left back. Now, we've also got to go on to the outgoings. There's been a fair few of them as well. Joe Powell's moved on, Sam Hughes, Deji Oshalaja, Josh Gordon, Charlie Larkin, Cole Stockton's moved on. They've left, practically the whole club's left. It's been a complete revitalisation at Burton Albion. It's going to be really interesting to see how it does go for them because they have got a long, long way to go if they want to reach that top half. And with the transfers they've made, the manager they've brought in, it could definitely be something that happens for Burton Albion this season. Cambridge United, under Gary Monk, finished 18th last season, 48 points, 12 wins, 12 draws and 22 losses, 39 goals scored and 61 goals conceded. I personally think these could be in a bit of a tricky spot next season, but they've brought in some really good players. Now, if we look at their incomings, they've brought in Shane Lavery from Blackpool. They've brought in Gary Gardner from Birmingham. They've brought in Corey Smith, who I think I would have kept at Derby County for this upcoming season. They've brought in Cal Watts from Newcastle, James Gibbons from Bristol Rovers, Ryan Loft from Port Vale, Taylor Richards from QPR, Vicente Reyes from Norwich's under-21s, and they've also brought up a player from their under-18s. Now, if we talk about the players they've let go of the likes of Adam Ray, Will Menyon, Lau Taylor, Tom Finch. They've let some big players go, Ryan Bennett, another one. And it's one of those for me where they sort of really needed a bit of a rebuild, and I think they've definitely got that. It's going to be really interesting to see what Gary Monk does this season. We are going to be keeping in touch with League One here on the channel, so make sure if you want to keep up with that, you hit that subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts on the likes of Cambridge down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on your club as well. If you have got this far into it, let me know as well down in the comments, because I know these videos are quite long. And obviously, we go on to the next club now, which is Charlton Athletic. Nathan Jones came in at the back end of last season, and I think he did an excellent job with them. The way they changed from when we played them at the start of a month to the end of a month was like night and day. Such a good side towards the back end of the season. They ended up only finishing 16th, but he has tore it up at Charlton and has completely changed what they were doing. 65 goals conceded, 64 goals scored. We do go on to their incoming transfers. They brought in Ghassan Ahadme from Ipswich Town, Greg Doherty from Hull City, who was linked to a range of championship clubs. Luke Berry has been reunited with Nathan Jones after leaving Luton. Josh Edwards has come in from Dunfermline. Will Mannion from Cambridge has come in as well. They've also brought in Alex Mitchell and Matty Godden from Championship Millwall and Coventry. Now, the big outgoing that they have is Alfie May. He's left for around €915,000. I believe there is going to be like add-ons in that deal as well. They've also lost George Dobson. He's gone to Wrexham. Corey Blackett-Taylor went on loan in January, but he's now moved permanently to Derby County. Jack Payne has left as well. They've lost so many big players, and like your likes of Connor Wickham's moved on, Kazan Luanga has also moved on, Michael Hector, and they really have he's reshaping that squad at Charlton. Will they go up this year? I think there's definitely a possibility that they could be right up there at the top end of League One. We now go on to Crawley Town, who I think are going to really struggle this season. The manager is Scott Lindsay. They finished 7th in League 2 last season. Eventual playoff winners with 70 points, 21 wins, 7 draws and 18 losses. 73 goals scored, 67 goals conceded. Now, they've had to have brought in a ton of players. They've brought in Russian Hepburn Murphy, Josh Flynn, Mohamedou Fowl, Gavin Houlihan. They've brought in all these players, and I still just don't think it's going to be enough. I think they're in a really difficult place because they've lost some of their key players this season, with Will Wright moving on, Kellan Gordon's moved on, Harry Ransom, Liam Kelly, Danilo Orsi's all moved on. They've lost so many really important players, and it is going to be really interesting to see how they do get on, because it's a very difficult one looking at Crawley, because they came up and weren't even like one of the better teams in League 2. And I just think it's going to be a real struggle for them. You can let me know your thoughts down in the comments, so don't forget to do that. The next club we're going on to is Exeter City. Gary Caldwell is in charge there. They finished 13th last season with 61 points, 17 wins, 10 draws, 19 losses, 46 goals scored, 61 goals conceded. Now, Exeter are one of those teams that are they're a middle of the road team. They've brought in Ryan Woods from Hull City, Jack McMillan from Patrick Thistle, John McGuinness from Wigan, Jay Bird from Arbroath. Ed Francis has gone in from Gateshead, where Dejan Brown was on loan last season. Joe Whitworth has come in from Crystal Palace. Johnny Yefeko has come in from Rangers, and Tom Dean has stepped up from their under-18 squad. Now, I think Exeter could do really well this season. I just have a feeling, but Let's look at the outgoings. They've lost Tom Carroll to MK Dons. They've lost James Scott to St Mirren. Zach Jules has moved on to Rotherham. They've lost Alex Hartage to Wycombe Wanderers. They have lost some big team players. They've lost some big players, and it's one of those for me where there's a couple of teams in this League One where they're either going to be right in it or miles out of it, and that's why I said earlier I think there could be 12 teams involved in the promotion scrap this season. I think there was about 10 at one point in the battle up until like obviously playoffs and below and things like that. And I think this season is going to be exactly the same. Next up, we've got Huddersfield Town with Michael Duff, former Barnsley man, in charge. They finished 23rd in the Championship last season on 45 points, 9 wins, 18 draws and 19 losses. They conceded 78 goals, scored 48, and I think Michael Duff knows what he's doing at League One level. It's going to be interesting to see how this one does go for them, because I think they have a fairly decent squad, and if we do look at the incomings that they've brought in, they're not really much to sniff at. They've brought in Anthony Evans from Bristol Rovers, who I thought was really good last season. They brought in Lasse Sorensen from Lincoln City, who I think was arguably one of the best wing-backs in the league last year. They've brought in Herbie Kane from Barnsley on a free transfer, and Mikael Miller from Plymouth. They've also let go of some big players as well, like the like of Jack Rudani, who's gone to Coventry for around €6 million. Connor Mahoney has gone to Barrow on a free transfer. Jordan Rhodes has gone to Blackpool. Now, he scored an abundance of goals last season at this level, and I'm really surprised that he didn't keep hold of him. But it is going to be interesting to see how that one does develop. Aaron Rowe has gone to Gillingham. Tyrese Simpson has gone to Stevenage. Yuta Nakayama has been completely without a club, and Diarra is also without a club. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below or in this top corner to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content that's going to be heading your way over the course of the upcoming season. Let me know your thoughts on the previews down below in the comments. Let me know what team you think should take away League One. Let me know everything down in the comments, and I'll let you now get back to the video. Now, Leyton Orient had an excellent season last year. They did finish 11th, but they were well in the fight up until probably the last 5 games. They weren't that far away at all from the playoffs. They finished on 65 points in 11th place with 53 goals scored and 55 goals conceded. And I think Richie Wellens could have an excellent season again. I think they could definitely be in that hunt again. Now, if we do look at their incomings, they've brought in Lewis Warrington, Diliang from Charlton, Sean Clare from Wigan, Sonny Perkins, Zach Hemming and Charlie Kelman have all joined on loan from Championship clubs. And I think they could be in a really, really good position for this upcoming season. I think they were really good last year. They found a formula that worked for them, and realistically, as I mentioned a few moments ago, up until probably about 5 games left, they were well within the hunt for a playoff place. Obviously, with the likes of Barnsley and Oxford slipping up for the back end of the season, it really opened up the door for the likes of Lincoln City. Blackpool were in that as well. Leyton Orient, Lincoln were all in those hunts as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how it does develop this season. Now, if we do go and look onto the outgoings at Leyton Orient, they've lost one of their big players in Rule Satoru to Bristol Rovers. He left on a free transfer. Rob Hunt's moved to Colchester. Jafet Tanga has gone to Ebbsfleet. Ethan Light has gone to Hemel Hempstead. Max Sanders has gone to Crewe Alexander. Joe Piggott has gone to AFC Wimbledon. Adam Thompson, Emmanuel Harvest and Harrison Sodge have all been left without a club. Now, I think they could be well in the hunt. You can let me know your thoughts down in the comments. So yeah, let me know what you think. Next up is Lincoln City. We mentioned them previously. Michael Skubala has been an absolute worldie manager for them. Finished 7th place last season. I'm actually devastated they didn't make it into the playoffs because they were so good the second half of last season. I think they went on like a 20-game unbeaten run or something like that. But realistically, their shortcomings in the first half of the season are the reason why they didn't end up in the playoffs. They did score 74 points, 20 wins, 14 draws and 12 losses, 65 goals scored and 40 goals conceded. And I tell you something, they were excellent. Now, if we look at Lincoln City, they've brought in Robert Street from Cheltenham Town, centre forward, for about €130,000. They've brought in Tendai Durinkwa from over in Greece. They've brought in Tom Bayliss from Shrewsbury, Derby County fan, by the way. They've brought in JJ McKieran from Morecambe, Dom Jeffries from Gillingham, Jamie Paddington from Cheltenham Town, Zach Geacock from Birmingham. They've brought in Tom Hamer from Burton Albion, Conor McGradles from Charlton, and George Wickens from Fulham under-21s. Now, if we look at the outgoings, there is a big one that I have to mention. It is Lasse Sorensen, €470,000 to Huddersfield Town, a massive player for them last season. But they've also lost Lucas Jensen to Millwall, as well as Joe Taylor, who was a massive, massive player for them last season on his loan spell from Luton Town. It will be interesting to see where Joe Taylor ends up, because he was probably the most problematic striker we dealt with last season. And yes, they only finished 7th, but if Joe Taylor could score, he would have scored 4 or 5 against us that day. Honestly, like, hand on heart, I think he could go to the very top. If he can start putting away his dinner, there's no way he couldn't play in the Premier League. His movement was like amazing. Like, I just don't even know how to word it. He was just so good. Obviously, his finishing is the reason why he's not playing at a higher level, obviously. But he made Erin Cashin look ordinary, and Cashin, if any of you know League One from last season, is definitely not ordinary. Was one of the best defenders in the league, part of the best defensive unit in the league as well when it comes to goals conceded. So I think that's going to be a massive loss for Lincoln City. Now, Mansfield Town, they came up 3rd in League 2 last season, 86 points, 24 wins, 14 draws, 8 losses, 90 goals scored and 47 conceded. Former Derby County man Nigel Clough is at the helm, and he's going to have a tough job on his hands this season. If we do look at who they've brought in Deji Oshalaja from Burton Albion, Keanu Bacchus from St Mirren, Fraser Blake Tracy from Swindon Town, and Lee Gregory, the 35-year-old striker, is coming from Sheffield Wednesday. Now, if we look at the outgoings, they've let go of Callum Johnson. John Joe O'Toole has gone to AFC Wimbledon. Anthony Hartigan has gone to Barnet, and Ollie Clark has gone to Swindon Town. They're going to be in a difficult position, in my opinion. They need a lot more. I think I saw something the other day. They're looking to utilise their loan market. And I'll tell you something. I think they should be looking at Dejan Brown from Derby County. Yes, he's not League One proven, but he knows where the back of the net is. And I think a season in League One for Dejan Brown would be absolutely massive. And I think Mansfield Town probably need a striker like Dejan Brown. You can let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you're a Mansfield Town fan. And yeah, I'll get back to you all in the comments as well. So make sure you let me know your thoughts down below. And let me know what you think so far. Northampton Town are up next, and it's John Brady in charge there. They finished 14th last season, and they quietly went under the radar with a fairly decent season. Obviously newly promoted, 60 points, 17 wins, 9 draws and 20 losses. 57 goals scored, 66 goals conceded. Now, if we look at the incomings that John Brady has made so far, Tom Eaves has come in from Rotherham, James Wilson from Port Vale, Jack Baldwin from Ross County. They've brought in some really, really good players who I think could have a massive impact on their season. It's going to be interesting to see how this one does develop over the course of the year. Now, if we look at the outgoings, they have let a fair few players go. Liam Moore, Dominic Gate, Danny Hilton have all left on free transfers. They've also let Sam Shering, Louis Apres, Manny Mont, and a load of other players go. I think they could still have a fairly decent season. It wouldn't surprise me to see them in the top half next year. Well, this upcoming season that's about a week away. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments on where they could finish. Obviously, my predictions video is coming out tomorrow. I think that will be a really, really interesting one. Next up, we've got the development crew themselves, Peterborough United, with the manager Darren Ferguson in charge. They finished 4th last season on 84 points, 25 wins, 9 draws and 12 losses, 89 goals scored, 61 goals conceded, and they were excellent for large majorities, but they started bad. They had a bad spell in the middle, and that is why they weren't in that automatic promotion race, really. I think they ended up at one point with 4 games in hand, and they were like 3 points away from Derby, but as I've said for the longest time on this channel, I'd rather have points in hand than games in hand, because having 3 points on the board is much better than having a potential 3 points on the board. So they're going to have a really tough job this season because, yes, they've brought in some players like Rio Adibe from Crewe Alexandra. They've brought in Chris Clark from Eltringham, who I think could be a really good signing. Jack Sparks as well could be really, really good. They'll obviously bring up a load of players from their youth system as well. But they've let a big name go in Harrison Burrows. They've also lost Ronnie Edwards to Southampton. Josh Knight has also gone. He's gone to Hanover in Bundesliga 2. Johnson Clark Harris. Now, he wasn't a main feature in their team last season, but he's moved on as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they look this season, obviously losing such big players. They've essentially lost three quarters of their back four. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the course of this season. I do think they're going to still be in that playoff promotion race. You'll have to let me know what you think down below. Now, Reading, Ruben Sellers is in charge there. They finished 17th last season, obviously, with all their issues off the pitch. I presume they're still undergoing those issues as well. I think he did an excellent job, and I think they had a wonderful season, bearing in mind what was going off. Obviously, Derby County had an interest in a few of their players at points. Savage's son, Charlie Savage, at one point, 53 points for Reading, though, 16 wins, 11 draws, and 19 losses. I believe they did have points deducted, so it would have been a bit higher than that. Scored 68, conceded 70. Now, this is why I think they've still got a problem. The only incoming they have doesn't come until the end of October, and it's an end of loan deal. So I think it's a bit of a problem for them this season. Now, they have let go of some players, Clinton Mola, Massey Carson, obviously the goalkeeper that I mentioned in the previous slide. He's on loan in Iceland at the minute, I believe that is. Nestor Guinness Walker's moved on, and so has Sam Hutchinson. Now, they did have a fairly decent squad anyway, and they haven't let go of any of their big names, which I think is massively important. I still think they could have a successful League One season, but I do think they'll probably end up being in the bottom half again, because it's just difficult if you can't improve. And some of the teams that have come down, I'd say, are probably better than the teams that went up. So it's going to be interesting, that one. I don't think they'll get relegated, but I certainly think they'll sort of be like mid-table sort of area. Next up, we've got Rotherham United, who took Steve Evans off Stevenage towards the back end of last season. They finished 24th in the Championship, scoring 27 points, 37 goals scored and 89 conceded. Now, they went on an absolute spree early in the transfer window. I think they made something like 9 signings in the first 4 weeks of postseason. They've brought in Johnson Clark Harris, Cameron Dawson, Joe Powell, Joe Rafferty, Liam Kelly, Reece James, Sean Raggett, Zach Jules, Sean McWilliams, Alex McDonald from Stevenage, Jack Holmes. They've brought in so many players. Like, it's crazy how many players they've brought in. It really is. And they could easily go straight back up. It's a Rotherham thing to do that anyway. They've just had 2 seasons in the Championship for the first time in God knows how long. And I really think they could go back up this season, especially with the signings that they've been making. They've not really spent anything. It's all loans and free transfers, and I think they've got a fairly decent squad. They had some good players there already, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. You can let me know your thoughts about Rotherham down in the comments, but I certainly think they're going to be up there. If we look at the outgoings as well, the big 2 to note is Peter Kioso and Victor Johansson. Obviously, Kioso had that good 6 or 7 months at Peterborough and then went back to Rotherham as a recall clause. Then didn't want to be at Rotherham, and it was a bit of an awkward situation for them. But then obviously they've lost arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship last season in Victor Johansson. Obviously goals conceded doesn't show that, but some of the data behind the scenes with him does show that. Now, they've also lost the likes of Jamie Lindsay, Tom Eves. They've let go of like Tyler Blackett, Cafu, he's gone. And it really has been a full reshape down at Rotherham. Now we take a look at Shrewsbury Town, and I think they're in for another struggle season. They finished 19th last season on 48 points, 35 goals scored and 67 goals conceded. Yes, they beat Derby last week. It doesn't mean they can't struggle in League One. Loads of teams beat Derby last year. I think it was 10. I think we're one of the only teams in the history of League One to go up with double-figure losses. And the other team, I think, was Paul Warren's Rotherham. So beating Derby isn't necessarily a good account for success, but Shrewsbury Town are going to have a lot to do this season. They've started bringing in a ton of players. Harrison Biggins from Doncaster, fairly decent season last season. They've brought in Luca Hall from Bristol Rovers, Toto Nizalia from Burton Albion, George Lloyd from Cheltenham. From Cheltenham. They've brought in some good players, but I still think that they need more. They have had a bit of a reshuffle. They've let go of Tom Bayliss, Daniel Ado left for money. It was really interesting seeing their tweet about him moving on. Shay Dunkley's moved on to Chesterfield. They have let go of some of their important players last season, maybe not necessarily by choice, but by need. I think they've spent decent chunks in recent seasons and it hasn't quite worked out, especially on wages, and it'll be interesting to see how they go this season. I certainly think they could be down that bottom end again because it has been sort of a full rebuild for them, and I really think they could be in trouble. Next up, we have Stevenage, where Alex Revel has taken charge there. They finished 9th last season after being in the playoffs for a large majority of the season. They finished on 71 points in the end with 57 goals scored, 47 goals conceded, and they've got a lot of work to do on this squad because it was a typical Steve Evans side. It was defensively astute, long ball into the box, percentage football, a bit like Paul Warne in a way. And they started off by bringing in Dan Kemp from MK Dons, Lewis Freestone from Cheltenham Town, Tyree Simpson, Dan Phillips and Louis Apparet from Northampton. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do get on. I do think there's going to be a few struggles for them. They've obviously lost Alex McDonald to Rotherham. He's gone to join up with former manager Steen Evans. Kane Hemmings has gone to Crewe Alexandra and Theo Alexandra has gone to St Ives. They've also lost Terence Van Kooten to Burton Albion. Next up, we're getting into the final few teams. We've got Stockport County, who have Dave Challinor in charge. They topped the table in League 2 last season. 92 points, 96 goals scored and 48 goals conceded. And I think they could be in for a fairly decent season. Now, if we look at the incomings, they've brought in Luis Florini from Manchester City. I think he's a fairly good player. I think, if I remember rightly, he's had a few injuries, which is why he sort of fell out of the picture at Man City and then ended up on a couple of loan spells. They've also brought in Lewis Bate from Leeds. I think he's a really, really good player. Callum Connolly was linked to some of the promoted sides this off-season. He could be a really good player for them. They've also brought in Jay Mingy from Colchester. They've brought in Jay Mingy from Colchester, Jack Diamond from Sunderland. They've brought in some really, really good players, and it is going to be interesting to see how this one does develop for Stockport. Now, if we look at the outgoings, they've let go of Antonio Saravic. He seems to have, or is it Sarcevic, something like that. He's had fairly decent seasons in League 2 level. I think he's on something like 4 promotions now. And whatever club he goes to next will probably get promoted. They've also lost Jordan Smith, their goalkeeper. He's gone to Hibernian. Neil Byrne has gone to Bradford. They've lost some big players in there, but I think they'll be okay. I do think they'll be in the relegation picture, but I do think they'll probably be fine. Now Wigan Athletic, Sean Maloney is the manager. They finished 12th last season. I believe they also had a points deduction. At the start of the season. But they were really, really good. I have to say, they impressed me a lot. And I think if you take away the points deductions, you take away the off-field drama, and if they could do what they needed to do last season, probably would have been in and around the playoffs. I'm not sure how many points they got deducted, but I think they only needed something like 12 or 13 more points to get into the playoffs, and obviously didn't have the off-field drama. If they didn't have the points deductions, they would have obviously been in a much better position. Scored 63 goals in the last campaign, conceding only 56. They've brought in some good players. I think Francis coming in from Fulham is a really good signing. Lonergan from Everton, I think he'll just be a third choice. Kelvin Ramsey is a really good signing from Liverpool. Joe Hugill, I think that could be really good. And Michael Olugbi, I think he went to Peterborough second half of last season and didn't quite go to plan. I think he got sent off in like his third game, and it sort of changed the narrative for him. I think that is Jamie Carragher's son, James Carragher, that has apparently moved up to the senior squad. Be interesting to see how that one goes. They've also brought in Silko Thomas on a loan from Leicester under 21s. That will be a very interesting deal to see how that one does progress the squad. Now, if we look at the outgoings, they have lost some big players. Tom Pearce has moved on. Charlie Wykes moved on. Sean Clare. but I do think they could have a really, really good season this year. It's going to be interesting to see how they do go. So yeah, let's get into the next one. Next up then is Wrexham. Phil Parkinson is in charge there. And it's going to be interesting to see Wrexham. Obviously, budget-wise, they could probably compete at the top. And they showed that last season, the way they spun it around in League Two. And ultimately, I think Notts County could have done the same. They just had no idea how to defend. But 88 points, going up in second, 26 wins, 10 draws, 10 losses, 89 goals scored, 52 conceded. They didn't start the greatest either, if I remember rightly. Obviously, I think Ben Foster had a couple of... I don't know if they were stinkers, but certainly wasn't at the level that he was expecting to be at. And I do think Wrexham could be up there in that top half again. But I do think it's going to be a bit of a step up in quality for them that they might not expect. But if we do look at their incomings so far, they've brought in Arthur Okonkwo from Arsenal. I believe he was on loan there last season. Really, really good goalkeeper. George Dobson's coming from Charlton. He was supposed to go to Hungary, but has stayed in England. They've also brought in a load of different young players as well. Sebastian Raven from Aston Villa, Lewis Brunt from Leicester. Callum Burton's come in from Plymouth as a goalkeeper. I do think they need more, but obviously they do already have one of the best squads in League Two, and the money they spend is absolutely ridiculous. Now, if we look at the outgoings, they've lost Ben Tozer, they've lost Luke Young, Aaron Hayden, Scott Butler, Luke McNicholas, Jordan Tunnicliffe, Callum McFadzean, Rob Lainton and Owen Cushion. Now, is that going to be very impactful? I'd personally say no. I think that they can bring in... I think Ben Tozer is probably the one that may have the most impact, because he sort of was one of the first players that went to Wrexham after their... big sort of Hollywood takeover, and Tozer's one of those players. Is going to help Forest Green get out of the National League and probably help them get back into League One. Yeah, so I think that could probably be the only one that maybe causes a few problems. I think the rest they're probably more than fine with, and they'll look to bring in some bigger names. On to the final team in League One. We're on to Wycombe Wanderers now. Matt Bloomfield in charge there. They finished 10th with 65 points, 17 wins, 14 draws and 15 losses. 60 goals scored and 55 goals conceded. And I do think these could be a really, really good side this season. They've got a lot to show for what they do, and I certainly think they could certainly be in the picture this year, because I think Matt Bloomfield is turning the tide a bit at Wycombe, and they've got some really, really good players. They've made some really good signings, and if we look at them to start off with, and they've brought in Tariq Bockinson from Sheffield Wednesday. I think he's a really, really good player. Daniel Ado as well from Shrewsbury. I think he is really, really good. You obviously look at the other players on that list. Nathan Bishop from Sunderland. I think he's a really good keeper. I think they really could sort of push on into that playoff picture this year. You can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments, but that's certainly what I believe. Now, they have lost some players this season. Stryjek has gone on a free transfer. Chris Fornio has gone to Bolton. Taylor Clark has left on loan. They've lost Damani Mella on a free transfer. Jack Wakely, Nathan Shepherd, Joe Jacobson, 37 years old, not surprised he's moved on. And Kane Vincent Young have all moved on as well. Now, obviously, it's a tough old season in League One. I think some clubs are going to be in for massive shocks this season. I think a lot of people know who's probably going to be at the top of my predictions list. But that video is going to be out tomorrow. If you have got to this point in the video, let me know down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on League One in general. We'll get to the predictions tomorrow, but make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, smash the like button, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll get into the predictions tomorrow. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.